why are we so blind to this? Why are we so blind to the fact that all over the world, ethnic identity, racial identity, religious identity matters more than national identity as the United States and its people often conceive of it? Why does it matter more than we often give credit to?
So 3 simple reasons that we tend to be very blind to these more primal identities. The first is that democracy really has worked very smoothly in this country for a very specific reason. America, for most of its 200-year history, was dominated overwhelmingly, economically, politically, and militarily, and culturally by a white majority. Obviously, with white being a moving target, not all groups were considered white, but basically, whites dominated this country. So that what happens is democracy is very stable from a political point of view. There are plenty of tribes and voices and smaller groups, but they're all oppressed. So free market democracy in a situation where you have one group that is overwhelmingly dominant economically and politically is very stable. So, we felt like a lot of people feel like, why is there so much tribalism now? All of this dissent. There's always been tribalism. There's always been these groups. It's just their voices were suppressed before. They didn't have a voice. Point 2 is what I already said. We have had a very successful history of assimilation. So our blindness is also rooted in some of our deepest, best values. The Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was always about overcoming these sectarian and religious and terrible ethnic things. The idea, these principles, democracy, individualism, rule of law, these things will triumph. And America, the experiment, was the great Enlightenment experiment. We're going to have markets that are neutral, democracy that's neutral. And what I point out in this book is that democracy is not ethnically neutral. And markets are not ethnically neutral. The principles may be, but they disproportionately benefit different groups. The final answer, JD, is I hate this term because I now think it's overused and part of the problem. But I think another reason we've been blind to these group differences is racism. In Vietnam, I got very kind endorsements from both General Stanley McChrystal and David Petraeus. I do not know those men before, so it's not an inside job. And they agreed with me that that United States did not pay enough attention to the tribal identities, to these smaller sectarian identities. And in Vietnam, for example, it was just the Asians, the Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, they're all gooks. They just all sandy-eyed gooks. What's the difference? And I won't go into in Iraq. General McMaster, he did something very successful in this search. He was the first person to really pay attention to these tribal and sectarian identities, and he turned it around for the time that he was there. One thing he specifically said was if you use a derogatory term, a racist term, to refer to all Arabs or all Muslims, you are basically handing the enemy a victory. So I think that's another reason. They all look the same. We have some negative view of all these brown people or all these Chinese people, Asian people.
So